We do power rankings, generally been doing power rankings every Wednesday, and I wanted to expand on that. We all know the importance of quarterback in the NFL, most important position. We are just talking about this with the awards. And so I felt like quarterbacks deserved their own ranking system. And this is against my wife's judgment, because she told me, no one's going to get this. You're being stupid, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not trying to drag on her. I'm just telling you, she's got better judge than me. And the reality is this might totally flop. I have been obsessed with, for about the better part of a year, with Suits. Wife showed it to me on Netflix. Got really obsessed with the show. I don't binge a lot of shows. I don't watch a lot of TV. But this show was an exception for me. And because we all know my sports background, QbBar is one of those. It's one of the few stats or advanced stats. It was advanced when I was growing up because it was relatively. I got it probably around middle school is when it started really showing its face all the time. And so I wanted to kind of incorporate the two. And so to incorporate my love of Suits, my love of football, and the enjoyment of the QbBar stat, I wanted to introduce the QbBar. And so real simple how this is going to work. We have, per each box, we have associates, we got junior partners, senior partners, managing partner, and while not labeled, we have back to school. Breaking down how we're ranking quarterbacks here. The back to school box. Look, man, it's for the guys who just don't quite make the list. No, not all 32 quarterbacks are on here. Some guys, sorry, if you're playing the journeyman quarterback, if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're playing Cooper Rush, I'm not putting Cooper Rush on here. And also want to be very clear here. I'm not putting guys who are injured on here. So Dak Prescott is not on this. Trevor Lawrence is not on this. If you are injured, you're not playing, you don't qualify. And this is a representation of how guys have played this year specifically. So this is not a career achievement. This is not a... Now, if you have prior success, yes, that impacts where you do land. But this is not just a career award. You've got to earn this. I'm super excited. So let's get into it. So starting with back to school, the two guys who I just feel need a little more time. Well, this is kind of a career achievement, right? Because Aaron Rodgers, we don't got a whole lot of time left. Unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers is obviously on his way out, having a really unproductive season. Anthony Richardson is kind of the proof concept and the best example I can give for this. So raw. We saw the entirety of the game. He had like 80, had under 100 yards passing entering the fourth quarter, and then has the game-winning drive, 80 plus yards, and goes crazy. We all know the talent is there with Anthony Richardson, just has not quite developed into the quarterback that is going to take the Colts to where they want to go. So these guys need a little more time, even though Aaron Rodgers doesn't got a lot of time left. We are definitely on the back end of his career. So starting with the associates, there is first years. When you go into a law firm, you got to start somewhere. So at the very bottom, Caleb Drake May. I understand everybody loves Drake May right now. By the way, I know that he's putting up numbers and he looks exciting. This is definitely a case of expectations. This is definitely a case of expectations. There is no expectation of Drake May, so we can go out there. He can throw the ball around. Even though he's throwing game-ending interceptions, it doesn't matter. Caleb Williams, who has played some of the best, worst football ever. Like, he's not throwing interceptions, and so his passer rating still looks good. Some of the things that he's doing, but he's also not throwing touchdowns. He wasn't really giving the explosive plays. I understand the coaching in Chicago has been a shit show all year. They obviously they've been firing more and more people. They did retain Thomas Brown, though, to be the head coach, so we'll see where this goes. Bryce Young's been playing really well. This, by the way, is not a left to right thing. These guys are all same boat, same bottom row, first year guys. Bryce Young's been playing really well the last couple of weeks, and I think that's gone definitely under the radar, considering everybody just decided in this fast-paced, immediate gratification culture, we just decided to write Bryce Young off immediately. Derek Carr, I saw a funny tweet about him. He'll never win one, but he'll make sure you never draft the one to win one either. He's just kind of in that perfectly just mid-quarterback range. Kirk Cousins, borderline going to fall off of this. Kirk Cousins played one of the worst games I've ever seen a quarterback play. I mean, it was very Nathan Peterman-esque. He was throwing passes that made no sense against the Chargers, but Kirk does have a reputation, does have a career to fall back on where I say, you know what, I know there's something here. I know this guy can be productive. I was really high on the Falcons coming into the season. They have obviously disappointed, but you got to give it up to Kirk. And Jameis is just fun, man. Jameis is just fun. Like, let's be real. Jameis is just fun. You would never want Jameis to quarterback your team, but you love watching quarterback someone else's team. On to the second years. So we're going to probably get a little I have one guy in here who probably a lot of other people have much higher, but I will explain. Again, we're going through everybody. Brock Purdy. I had I think, higher opinion on Brock Purdy than most people did. I was in that I think he's really good. He's obviously not like constant NFC Championship Super Bowl great, but I did think he was pretty good and that he would continue to excel. But this season, seeing, again, everybody looks worse when there's less talent. Everybody looks worse when their team has injuries. But he looks even worse than what I projected him to fall down with these guys not being there. Kyler Murray is very hit and miss to me. Kyler Murray has games where it looks like he's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. He's running around. He throws a really nice deep ball. And then he has games where I'm like, what are we doing? Jordan Love and CJ are here. So I was super high on CJ Stroud. I was not as high as Jordan Love coming into the season. I think these guys have both actually regressed to where they really are, which is good, clearly talented, but Jordan Love has too many turnovers, in my opinion, to justify really moving up to that junior partner, which is the next set of quarterbacks. And CJ's just regressed. Like, that's just the reality of it. Either regressed and or when he actually has to play first place competition, teams that are going to make the playoffs, he's just not as good as we thought he was going to be coming into this season. And so we just have to accept that. Those are probably the more controversial on the associate level. Shout out to Russ. Shout out to Russ. And I'm not a Russ guy right now, obviously. He sucked it up in Denver for 2 years. I understand that. But shout out to Russ for how he's playing with Pittsburgh. I don't think Pittsburgh is a Super Bowl team. I don't think Pittsburgh is as good as everyone's making them out to be. But you can't take away from the fact of what he's doing when people thought his career was essentially over. It is impressive. And Tua, I've brought this up a couple times. Tua deserves more respect than any of us give him, because none of us, because of his contract, we place him in this elite category. Look at the Dolphins with and without him. Like, everybody wants to talk about that. Look where he is. Look what they do without him. And it is two entirely different offenses. So Tua, you got to give some credit, but I still think he stays in the associate level. Going up to our new junior partners. Yeah, I got Bo. We'll get to him in a second. Baker's been playing great. Like, Baker is the guy who's actually having to deal with the excuses we give to these other quarterbacks, to Purdy for missing his weapons in San Francisco, to, excuse me, Caleb with his coaching. Baker's dealt with all that. I don't really know if Baker's got a great coach. Mike Evans has missed time. Chris Godwin has been out obviously for several weeks now. They dealt with a bunch of injuries, and they're still back to, yes, they can't beat Atlanta, and that's going to hurt them. They're 0-2 in the 0-2 against Atlanta, but they've tied themselves up now at the top of the NFC South, and Baker's got great numbers. Like, Baker, and he's just one of those dudes who you just watch him play, and it's like, yo, he could hoop, he could ball. Baker's just one of those dudes. Geno Smith is maybe the most underrated quarterback in football. He just goes out there, he puts up yards, he puts up points, he's productive. He should be the actual poster child for the comeback quarterback that we've seen. Sam Darnold in Minnesota, him, like these guys who are having these late career resurgences. Geno just puts up numbers, man. And then the two guys who are fighting for Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix. Jaden obviously got off to a much better start. Bo hasn't playing much better the last month and a half. This is somewhat of a potential thing / I was going to put them down at associates, but I just flat out think if you're looking at the guys under them, besides maybe Russ, and Russ is in a unique situation because we all know Russ is either playing above his skis and he is closer to the end of his career than the start. I think they are playing better in terms of ascension than what CJ and Jordan Love are right now, which again, those are probably my two more controversial ones. I have not been as high on Jordan Love as everybody else has been throughout this last year and a half. I think they're both playing better than Kyler and Purdy. So I got both of the rookies fighting for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And we all saw the 93 out, though. I know some people want to act and want to go out there and say, you know what? What if Bo Nix didn't have a 93-yard throw? Well, what if we just started moving everyone's biggest plays from their game and see whose stats they have? On to our second-year junior partners. We move up the ladder of importance. Stafford, this is kind of also another legacy pick. I just see Matt Stafford, and I think that's what it, like 20 years ago, that's what it looked like. Matt Stafford could stand in the pocket, throw it everywhere. It's nothing fancy, just a gunslinger throwing the ball over the place. He's dealt with a lot of injuries as well. The Rams and Niners are fighting for the most injury-riddled team in the league, but Stafford continues to be productive, put up numbers. No, are his stats amazing? No, but he's had multiple stretches of the year without Nakua, without Kupp, without both, and he's continuing to keep them relevant as far as towards a playoff spot. Justin Herbert is weird to me. Justin Herbert has 1 interception all season, which sounds amazing. He also only has 13 touchdowns. So we're not really reliant on Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is an A1 talent. Everyone acknowledges that. Height, arm strength, all the things that you'd want from a guy. But he's not really playing like it. And some of that I know is Harbaugh protecting him or the style he wants to play. And he got an offensive lineman instead of receivers. But it's just a little weird. But I think his talent and his high-end play is good enough to justify being up here. Sam Darnold, I don't believe in Sam Darnold at all. But I can't deny, like, the Vikings are still alive for the 1 seed. They've put the Lions in this awkward situation where, as great as the Lions are playing, the Lions are now mounting up a bunch of injuries. The Lions could fall to the 5 seed. And if Sam Darnold wins the division with the Lions, Packers, and the number 1 overall draft pick with the Bears, you gotta give him props. Do I think they could win multiple playoff games with Sam Darnold? No, not really. But we have to give him his credit for what he has accomplished so far this season. And Jalen Hurts, who I think is not that far off from Sam Darnold in terms of, I like Jalen. I think Jalen's naturally more talented than Sam, but Jalen in his best is, again, the year they went to the Super Bowl, they led the NFL and set a record for sacks. Defense was amazing. Offensive line was amazing. Had great receivers. Went through that stretch. New coordinators. Because guys were going everywhere. Struggled like hell at the end of last season. And now that they're rebounding, their defense, number 1 in the NFL of yards allowed per game. He still has Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. That offensive line is still great. A lot of his rushing touchdowns. I know he's like on par statistically with Cam Newton as a career running quarterback, or Lamar as a career running quarterback when it comes to touchdowns. But when a lot of your touchdowns are people pushing you into the end zone, I view it differently. I like Jalen. I think Jalen's really talented. I also think for all the shit Alabama quarterbacks get, because they'll never be in that good of a situation again, Jalen's basically playing on the Alabama version of a team in the NFL. Senior partners, there is no clarification. We just knocking them all out at once. So these are, in my opinion, the top or 4 of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. Lamar, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jared Goff. Yes. Here's the thing. It's a weird season, right? Everybody's struggling in certain parts. The Lions as a whole are probably the most complete team we've seen, but now they're, again, suffering a bunch of injuries. So it's like Jared Goff has been great, but he has that 5 interception game. Joe Burrow has been great, but his team keeps losing. Lamar Jackson has been great, the MVP at multiple points of this season, but they have those really bad losses. Josh Allen has been great, but he's got that horrible loss to Baltimore. These are Lamar, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow are tier 1 quarterbacks. I don't think there's any way you can put it around that. Like, those are tier 1 quarterbacks. Jared Goff is the quarterback on the best team, which is why I think he deserves to be in here. This is kind of like the guy who just does crazy billables at a law firm. He's that Tim. As we get a little longer into this, we'll eventually start having some Lewis Litt and Harvey roles. But those 3 are tier 1 quarterbacks. Goff's been the quarterback on the best team all season, which then leads us with only one more spot, which is the managing partner. Now, this is the only position where there can only be one. And I know, it is not a career thing. It is not a, it's not a just what have you, it's not an accolades. It's how you're playing right now. And while I know his stats are not what some of these other guys' stats are, I give a lot of shit about the Chiefs. Talk a lot of shit about them. I'm a proud Chief hater. But best record in football. He still has incredible numbers on third down. And remember, I said this last week. I don't really think he is the problem. I think it's everybody else around him. I think the fact Travis Kelce's just no longer a great tight end. Now he's just a good tight end on a couple given games. I think the fact Chris Jones has slowed down and people just aren't talking about it. I think the fact that the overall talent on the Chiefs isn't playing up to par, but I don't really think it's a Patrick problem. And when you get to the playoffs, like, what are we going to do? You're still going to be scared if Mahomes gets the ball and there's 3 minutes to go. That's the reality. So, our inaugural QbBar, Rodgers and Richardson going back to school. We've got our associates, we've got our junior partners, we've got our senior partners, and our managing partner being Patrick Mahomes.